Roger Federer.
Roger Federer.
I am so happy I made it through.
Most beautiful player I've ever seen play tennis. Total class act.
Congratulations, Roger Federer.
Tremendous from Federer.
Federer is the champion in Basel. It's his 99th career title.
It tells his time, the story of a man who redefined grace, power and longevity in sport.
On August 8, 1981, in the quiet city of Basel, Switzerland, Robert and Lynette Federer welcomed a son who would eventually redefine the boundaries of grace and athleticism on a global stage. Growing up in a multicultural household with a Swiss father and a South African mother, young Roger was immersed in an environment that valued both precision and perspective. Alongside his sister Diana, his childhood was defined by a boundless enthusiasm for any sport that involved a ball and a scoreline. Before the tennis court became his sanctuary, the football pitch was his primary obsession. Roger was a talented midfielder with a keen eye for strategy, but the solitary nature of tennis began to exert a stronger pull, offering a unique test of individual accountability that football simply couldn't match. Even in those formative years, at the local Tsiba Tennis Club, the Federer flair was beginning to emerge. However, it was often masked by a fiery, perfectionist temper that saw rackets thrown and tears shed whenever a point didn't go exactly as he had envisioned. Early coaches like Adolf Kakowski recognized the immense natural talent, but knew that the boy's greatest opponent was his own frustration. It was during these years that the foundation of his technical game, the fluid movement, and the embryonic one-handed backhand began to take shape under careful guidance. He found his inspiration in the calm, serve and volley elegance of Stefan Edberg and the clinical power of Boris Becker. By watching his idols, Roger began to understand that true greatness required a marriage of explosive skill and an unbreakable stoic mental discipline. By the age of 12, the decision was finalized. He would leave the football team to focus entirely on tennis. It was a pivotal moment of commitment that set a young, highly competitive boy on a path toward national training centers and eventually sporting immortality. As the mid-90s approached, the adolescent Federer began to dominate the Swiss junior circuits, showcasing a level of variety that baffled his peers. He moved from local tournaments to international stages, quickly climbing the ITF junior rankings, as scouts began to whisper about the boy from Basel with the effortless technique. The year 1998 served as his definitive arrival on the world stage. At the hallowed grounds of Wimbledon, Roger captured the boys' singles title without dropping a set in the final, a victory that signaled his comfort on the grass and his readiness to compete against the best young talents on the planet. By the end of that season, he was the top-ranked junior in the world, a distinction that earned him a wild-card entry into his first ATP tournament in Gstaad. At just 17 years old, Roger made the bold decision to leave the junior ranks behind and embrace the grueling reality of the professional tour. The transition was not without its hurdles, as the teenager quickly learned that raw talent alone could not overcome the physical strength and seasoned experience of veteran pros. His early matches were a masterclass in resilience, defined by narrow losses that provided the essential lessons required to navigate the high stakes of the ATP. Despite the initial struggles, the breakthroughs came with increasing frequency as he notched his first tour-level wins. His ranking began a steady ascent, fueled by a maturing game that started to look more like the legendary style the world would soon recognize, a blend of lightning, quick footwork, and a surgical serve. It was during this period that his signature one-handed backhand evolved into a weapon of both beauty and utility. Rather than opting for the safety of a two-handed stroke, Roger leaned into the versatility of the single-hander, allowing him to slice, drive, and flick the ball with an unpredictability that kept opponents constantly off balance. By the turn of the millennium, the tennis world was no longer just watching a prospect. They were witnessing the birth of a strategist. Every match served as a laboratory for his aggressive movement and precise shot-making, setting the stage for an era where his technical perfection would soon meet its first major rewards. The dawn of the new millennium marked a period of rapid evolution for the young Swiss star. Between 2001 and 2003, the tennis world watched as the flashes of brilliance became more consistent, with Roger securing his first ATP titles and proving that he could maintain his intricate style of play under the crushing pressure of the center court lights. One of the most symbolic moments of this era occurred on the grass of Wimbledon in 2001 when a 19-year-old Federer faced his idol, Pete Sampras. In a grueling 5-set thriller, the apprentice defeated the master, ending Sampras's 31 match-winning streak at the All England Club and signaling a literal changing of the guard in men's tennis. Despite the hype following that victory, the road to a major title required further emotional seasoning. It wasn't until the summer of 2003 that all the components of his game, the mental fortitude, the physical endurance, and the technical variety finally aligned in a moment of pure sporting destiny at the Wimbledon Championships. Facing the powerful Mark Philippoussi in the final, Federer put on a display of clinical excellence that left spectators in awe. With a straight sets victory, he collapsed to his knees, tears of relief and joy flowing freely as he realized his lifelong dream of lifting the gold trophy, officially becoming the first Swiss man to win a Grand Slam singles title. This victory was the catalyst that transformed a rising star into a global phenomenon. The win at Wimbledon didn't just change his ranking, it altered his entire career trajectory, providing him with the unwavering self-belief that he belonged at the absolute summit of the sport, capable of dominating any opponent on any surface. As his confidence soared, a distinct playing style began to mesmerize the public. It was a brand of tennis that felt like an art form, characterized by an aggressive baseline game and a seamless transition to the net. He wasn't just winning points, he was orchestrating them with a level of tactical adaptability that the modern era had rarely seen. New rivalries began to crystallize during this ascent, as Roger found himself constantly tested by heavy hitters like Andy Roddick and the relentless consistency of the next generation. These early battles forced him to sharpen his defensive skills, ensuring that his offensive brilliance was backed by a steeliness that could survive the longest rallies. Back home in Switzerland, he was quickly becoming a national hero, a symbol of excellence and humility that resonated far beyond the sports pages. His image was pristine, and his growing international fan base was drawn to his effortless demeanor, sparking the first of many high-profile endorsement opportunities that would eventually make him a global brand. By the end of 2003, the narrative had shifted from whether he would be a great player to how many records he might eventually break. The foundation of the Federer era was firmly in place, built on the hallowed grass of London, and reinforced by a playing style that promised to elevate the sport of tennis to heights of popularity and prestige never before imagined. On February 2nd, 2004, the tennis landscape underwent a seismic shift as Roger Federer ascended to the world #1 ranking. He would possess this position with an iron grip, embarking on a staggering reign of 237 consecutive weeks at the summit. This era represented total psychological and physical sovereignty over a tour left searching for answers that did not exist. During these 4 golden years, Federer became a master of the multi-slam season, capturing 3 out of 4 major titles in 2004, 2006, and 2007. His dominance was so absolute, he appeared to have solved the game, winning 11 out of 16 non-clay Grand Slams. He moved with a supernatural economy of motion, gliding across the surface while opponents struggled for rhythm. This era saw the crystallization of the Big Three, a rivalry-driven epic that would define 21st century sports. While Roger was the established king, a young, muscular Rafael Nadal emerged as his most persistent foil. Their early encounters created a compelling contrast between Roger's classical elegance and the raw left-handed power of the man from Mallorca. While Nadal challenged him on clay, a young Novak Djokovic began to emerge as a threat on hard courts. Their early meetings, including a high-stakes 2007 US Open final, gave the world a glimpse of the tactical complexity that would eventually challenge the Swiss maestro. Yet, during this peak window, Federer remained the insurmountable wall the tour could not scale. His playing style reached a state of aggressive perfection that many analysts believe was the highest level of tennis ever played. He moved closer to the baseline than his predecessors, taking the ball earlier than anyone in history and giving opponents zero time to react. His serve was disguised with such precision that returners were often left guessing until the ball hissed past. This was also the period where the Federer brand transcended sports to become a global cultural phenomenon. His grace and flawless sportsmanship earned him the Stefan Edberg Award year after year, cementing his image as the ultimate gentleman champion. Global icons and luxury brands flocked to him, drawn to the effortless way he carried the weight of greatness. By the end of 2007, his statistical milestones were almost difficult to comprehend. He had successfully defended both Wimbledon and the US Open for 4 consecutive years, a feat of consistency that seemed to defy the physical laws of professional athletics. He had transformed the ATP Tour into his personal theater, leaving critics wondering if anyone could end this brilliance. The tactical evolution he displayed was remarkable, blending an aggressive baseline game with a rediscovered flair for net play. He could win from the back with his lethal forehand, or shorten points with delicate volleys reminiscent of past masters. This versatility meant he had no discernible weakness, forcing every opponent to play a perfect match just to stay close. As his trophy cabinet expanded to include double-digit Grand Slam titles, his influence on the economics of the sport became undeniable. Tournament attendance shattered records whenever he appeared, and television ratings spiked as viewers tuned in to see his streak continue. He was no longer just a player, he was a global ambassador who brought artistry back to competition. As 2007 ended, Roger Federer stood alone at the absolute peak of his powers, with a legacy many believed could never be matched. He had redefined what was possible, marrying the traditions of the past with the high-octane physicality of the future. The world was witnessing a decade-defining masterclass that ensured his name would be etched in the pantheon of the greatest ever. The Swiss maestro's invincibility faced new pressure as the decade turned. While he remained a fixture in major finals, younger defensive rivals began to chip away at his dominance. This period marked a shift from the hunter to the hunted as he confronted his body's physical vulnerability for the first time. Mid-career struggles were both physical and tactical, as the rivalry with Rafael Nadal peaked and Novak Djokovic emerged as an immovable obstacle. In Paris and London, Federer faced attritional wars that tested his resolve. Critics suggested his classical style was becoming a relic in an era of raw baseline power. In 2013, a back injury led to a challenging season, causing his ranking to slip and sparking retirement rumors. Instead of bowing out, Roger chose total reinvention by switching to a larger racket frame. This bold change offered more power and stability, proving his willingness to evolve even as a veteran. He enlisted childhood hero Stefan Edberg to refine an aggressive, net-charging style to shorten points and save his body. This tactical shift was a necessity of age that breathed new life into his game. By moving forward, he reclaimed the initiative and dictated play against younger, faster opponents. His spirit was truly tested in 2016 when a knee injury forced his first professional surgery. After a heartbreaking fall at Wimbledon, he shut down his season for 6 months to recover. To many, a 35-year-old returning from surgery after such a long hiatus seemed like an impossible task. Roger viewed the break as a rare opportunity for a total physical and mental reset away from the tour. He focused on a meticulous rehabilitation program to allow his body to heal for one final push. This quiet reflection was the calm before the most spectacular storm of his storied career. The 2017 Australian Open became a miraculous chapter as Federer arrived in Melbourne, seeded 17th. In a fairy tale run, he battled through exhausting 5-set matches to reach a final against his nemesis, Rafael Nadal. The world watched in disbelief as the two legends prepared for one more monumental clash. Trailing by a break in the final set, Roger summoned inspired, free-hitting tennis that flipped the script of their rivalry. He won 5 straight games to capture his 18th Grand Slam title, shocking the sporting world. It was a victory of spirit over age, and a definitive answer to every doubter. This renaissance continued as he reclaimed Wimbledon without dropping a set and returned to world #1 in 2018. At 36, he became the oldest man to ever hold the top spot in ATP history. His ability to adapt kept him a title contender, while his peers had long since retired. Through every injury and critique, he maintained a public grace and a private fire that inspired millions. He proved a champion's heart is measured by the courage shown in climbing back up. This journey transformed him from a dominant champion into a symbol of timeless resilience and excellence. As the third decade of the new millennium progressed, the frequency of Roger's appearances on the match court began to fade. The surgically repaired right knee, which had undergone 3 separate operations since 2020, was no longer responding to the rigors of professional competition. He spent months in a quiet, grueling cycle of rehabilitation, holding on to a glimmer of hope that he might experience one final competitive summer on the grass of Wimbledon. By the late summer of 2022, however, the reality of his physical limitations became impossible to ignore. In a poignant social media message that echoed across the globe, Roger announced his intention to retire from professional tennis. He spoke with a heart full of gratitude, acknowledging that while his mind was willing to continue, his body had sent a clear and final message that it was time to close the competitive book. He chose the Laver Cup in London, a tournament he helped create, as the stage for his final act in the sport. The news triggered an outpouring of tributes from every corner of the world, with fans, former rivals, and world leaders united in their admiration for a career defined by excellence. It was a moment that transcended tennis, marking the end of an era for one of the most beloved figures in all of modern athletics. The final match was scripted in a way that only the gods of sport could provide, as he took to the court for a doubles match alongside his greatest rival and dear friend, Rafael Nadal. Seeing the two titans on the same side of the net was a symbolic celebration of the mutual respect that had come to define their relationship. Although the scoreboard recorded a narrow loss, the result felt entirely secondary to the profound sense of history unfolding in the arena. When the final ball was struck just past midnight, the emotions that Roger had held in check for weeks finally surged to the surface. He stood at the center of the black court, surrounded by his family and the legends of the game, weeping alongside a visibly moved Nadal. It was a vulnerable, human display of affection that showed the world the deep bonds forged through decades of intense and respectful competition. In his farewell speech, he addressed the capacity crowd not with a list of his achievements, but with a simple message of love for his family and the journey they had shared. He specifically thanked his wife, Mirka, for her unwavering support, noting that she could have asked him to stop years ago, but instead allowed him to keep chasing his dreams. The evening ended with a lap of honor, a final walk into the sunset for a man who had transformed a sport into a work of art. Since stepping away from the tour, Roger has transitioned effortlessly into a role as a global ambassador and mentor for the next generation of players. He remains a fixture at major tournaments, now watching from the stands as a respected elder statesman rather than a competitor. His retirement was not an end, but a transition into a new chapter where his influence continues to shape the culture and future of the game he loves. While his records on the court are legendary, Roger Federer's financial impact has redefined the earning potential of a global athlete. Over a professional career spanning more than 2 decades, he amassed over $130 million in prize money, a figure that places him third on the all-time list. However, these tournament winnings represent only a small fraction of the vast commercial empire he meticulously built alongside his competitive journey. His portfolio of endorsements is widely considered the gold standard in sports marketing, characterized by long-term loyalty and a focus on premium, blue-chip brands. From his iconic lifetime partnership with Wilson to his decades-long association with Rolex and Mercedes-Benz, Roger became the face of Swiss precision and luxury. These partnerships were never mere transactions. They were strategic alignments with brands that mirrored his own values of excellence and consistency. In 2018, he made one of the most significant business moves in sporting history by leaving Nike to sign a staggering $300 million deal with the Japanese retailer Uniqlo. This 10-year contract was unique because it contained no retirement clauses, ensuring his income would remain stable long after he stopped playing professionally. This move signaled his transition from a purely athletic icon to a global lifestyle brand with influence that transcended the tennis court. Perhaps his most lucrative venture was his 2019 decision to become a co-entrepreneur and investor in the Swiss footwear brand On. By taking an equity stake rather than a traditional endorsement fee, Federer bet on his own ability to drive the brand's global growth. When the company went public in 2021, the value of his stake ballooned, eventually contributing significantly to him becoming the first billionaire in the history of tennis. Beyond personal wealth, his financial success has been deeply intertwined with his commitment to philanthropy through the Roger Federer Foundation. Since its inception in 2003, the foundation has raised tens of millions of dollars to support educational programs in Southern Africa and Switzerland. By 2024, his efforts had reached over 2.4 million children, providing them with the resources and quality education needed to take control of their own futures. Federer's business acumen and marketing image have left an indelible mark on the economics of sports, proving that an athlete's brand can remain potent even in retirement. He paved the way for future generations to view themselves as entrepreneurs, showing that grace and professionalism can be as profitable as they are admirable. His legacy in the boardroom now stands as a parallel to his legacy on the court, a masterclass in strategy, timing, and enduring value. Roger Federer's true measure is not found in trophies or statistics, but in how he made the world feel about the game. He leaves a legacy where tennis became a display of rhythmic beauty and technical perfection that transcended the sport. His influence is visible globally, as new generations attempt to replicate his fluid footwork and iconic backhand. He proved that a fierce competitor could maintain the highest standards of sportsmanship, showing that kindness and dominance can coexist. As the pioneer of the Big Three era, Roger set the standard for longevity and sustained excellence. His rivalries with Nadal and Djokovic elevated tennis to a peak of global popularity, forcing his opponents to reach higher and play better for the fans. Beyond the court, he remains a cultural icon and a respected ambassador for humanitarian causes. His commitment to charity and his ability to bridge cultures through sport have made him a global symbol of unity and character. From the courts of Basel to the world's most prestigious stages, Roger Federer changed the very DNA of tennis. His legacy is a timeless reminder that sport, at its best, is a form of art that can truly inspire the world.